Jacob, how's it going?
Jake, why are you going to act like we're not close buddy friends? Probably because I didn't answer your call last week and I owe you a phone call back. So that's on me. Internet has heard it that I haven't been a good cellular friend lately, and I owe you a call, Jake. You're still in my phone as Jake the Hottie and always will be. So,
excellent questions, by the way.
Yeah, really good questions.
I hope you got a couple hours to just touch the surface of those.
Well, question one is probably the question. One of the questions we wrestle with the most is corporate worship. In general, what are my thoughts on corporate worship? I'd say my thoughts are yes. He's just gonna leave because I've got so much to say about this. That corporate worship is. I think it's important for the encouragement of the body, but I think that how a church operates. Oh, we're gonna die? Okay, we're gonna die if he doesn't plug us in, but I'll keep talking. One thing I'd say it's important to think about is that obviously churches can look a lot different. The question is, are they being Spirit-led, and are they biblical, and are they being Spirit-led? There's some churches that can be biblical, meaning they're following all the technical rules, but that doesn't mean they're healthy. If they're not being Spirit-led, a lot of people turn the Bible into a checklist. So I sort of use the Bible as guidelines to make sure that there's not being anything unhealthy. But then the question is the Spirit really leading in that body? Now, there's so many different forms a church can take. For better or for worse, most churches in America take one form, one specific form that was most of us have grown up in. But in other countries, it's not like that. And especially over the last 2,000 years, it hasn't looked like it does now. The model in America, we call it the corporate model. It looks a lot more like a business. And there's a lot we could say about that too. Maybe some for better, but mostly for worse. But not as an indictment. I mean, the real question is just, is the Spirit moving there? Are the people that are in leadership, the elders, the pastors, are they listening to the Lord? I do think corporate worship is important. Whether that has to be once a week, I don't. There's no biblical mandate. Whether it has to be led by the pastor per se, that's not even a biblical mandate. The Bible doesn't spell out a lot of what a gathering is supposed to look like. And I bet that's probably intentional. I know that for us, the times when we've grown the most spiritually has been in more of a house church setting where everyone comes with an expectation to share and everybody comes with an expectation to listen. And so everyone is coming, hearts prepared. And then as that group grows in its unity and in its attentiveness to the Holy Spirit, the ones who have the greatest gifts to teach usually step up, but that doesn't mean nobody else talks. So that's been the type that we've enjoyed the most. Now I'm involved now, and I'm at a church that I love, and that has in a lot of ways is very beautiful. That has a more traditional last century America feel to it. It's a Sunday worship and a Wednesday night kind of Bible study time, and then small groups are mostly Sunday mornings, but some other times. And I think that can be a healthy model. I think the thing we wrestle with more is the fact that people, that model would work just as well as any other model if people were really living in community with one another, if they're really listening to the Holy Spirit, and if they're really operating under biblical guidelines. I think most people don't really share their lives with other people. They have, we talk about it in the song Poor, they have intersecting lives, but they don't really live together. And you probably heard me use the analogy before that me meeting with an accountability partner, that's kind of an American idea, you need to have an accountability partner. And it's definitely one you can take from the Bible, is a healthy idea, but not nearly as healthy as the fact that I live with Jeremiah. And so I can tell you once a week that I struggle with anger, but him watching me struggle with anger every day leads to a much more valuable conversation, much more organic and beneficial conversation than it would for me to say, I think I'm struggling with anger. Plus, he's going to see things that I wouldn't perceive about myself. And whether the pastor needs to preach every Sunday, I don't think that that's a biblical mandate. I think it can work. I know that if I was a pastor, the expectation to give a planned out rhetorical speech once a week seems a little bit much. Because I know for me, the Lord usually teaches me things in seasons. So if I were really teaching my heart, I'd probably teach the same thing for a couple months at a time and then have a new thing, So I think a lot of the models that we have in America, they can work. But once again, the question is, Are they really having community? Are they really being led by the Spirit? And are they falling under the biblical guidelines? When I think far too often, and I'd say for me, and on that same point, the other thing that's really negative that our generation does is we look at a model that's not succeeding and we throw everything away, and we don't ask the question, why? Why did they do things the way they did them? Because then we'll find that a lot of the traditions they have were grown to solve a problem, and it was a real problem, and it was a good answer. Now, we may find if we look at it that answer isn't the right answer for today, but the problem is still real, and we need to reinterpret the answer. And I'm not talking biblically, I'm just talking functionally here. Why do we do visitation on Monday nights, which is something that churches used to do a lot? People will throw that out, but they don't think about why was it there. And I don't think that that's the best way to do it either. But when you don't ask the question and you just throw it out, then that's kind of the arrogance of youth. So we're still wrestling every day with what does a healthy church look like. And it's, we go to a church where our pastor preaches every Sunday, and I lead worship every Sunday, and I think that can work. But just like anything we do, any method we use, the enemy's going to adapt to. And I can't remember the quote exactly, but the guy said, he said that the goal is not for the church to come into any particular form, but rather for the church to be formed into the image of Christ. Like, we could think of 100 different models of the church that would have pros and cons. Some would be a lot better than others, but the real question is that group of people being grown into the image of Christ? That's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, it's hard to know, I tweeted or Instagrammed the other day, that, we'd be talking church are on fire, and, I mean, literally, we're logging hours every week talking about this. So to try to sit down for 10 minutes and explain our views on it is just simply impossible. We can give you a rough overview, and I think you said, is it necessary and why, and I think it's absolutely necessary to come together with believers, but yeah.
Literally, they spend hours and hours talking about this, and I'm not joking. It goes on and on and on. You would not believe it. I just wanted to
It's the ongoing.
it literally is.
If you ever get caught in a conversation with us that you didn't begin and you don't know what we're talking about, just assume we're talking about the church.
It is. Say that.
And not like our church, like the church.
Wolves and killing wolves, or the church.
Yeah.
It's one of the two.
Yeah. Last night our conversation was about, do we think we could kill a wolf one-on-one? And it lasted about an hour.
I think that biblically it's well supported and well exampled. That it just, things are going to work better when you're in unity with other people of the same mind and of the same goal. And I don't know. I feel like the best way to say why is man, I wish you could just watch the videotape of the last 10 years of my life to see I just experienced what I think is getting to real community and real church, not the event. Though I attend the event, if you will, but church isn't a one time a week thing, and it's certainly not a 1 hour, one time a week thing. It's the way it's literally the unity of the believers, and I even think there's value to saying that there's a geographical sense to that. I'm sure there's things like internet churches or so on popping up and Skype churches or something. I think there's just too much value, like Aaron said, to literally living with and beside one another on a regular basis. Doing
life together. One of the other pastors on our staff always says life on life contact, that really sharing life together. And I think too, there's something really significant about the fact that most of what Jesus prays for the church before he leaves is for its unity. And so to me, that's one of the measures of how healthy is our church gatherings. I say every Sunday from the mic usually, just I want you to remember before you leave, you didn't come to church, you are the church. But in a sense of a church gathering, the church being together, I think one of the ultimate barometers of it would be, is it really growing unity? Because if it's not, and then I think the other real indictment to think about in the American church is it one of the negative things about it, for all the positive things I could say, and I say that very intentionally, for all the positive things I could say about it, is it really creates a consumer culture where people are expected to come and listen and be quiet, whereas to be a producing culture where everybody is being transparent and open and sharing, and obviously that's still under biblical bounds and there's still leadership involved. I don't think the whole model is wrong, but it's something we talk about a lot. You just see Jesus praying for unity so much. So that would be, literally we could have this conversation for hours.
But I'd love to as well.
Yeah.
We probably will tonight.
We probably will tonight. If you want to come up for the bonfire, we're having a bonfire tonight. The other question was on eschatology, and I would say in generally, you're right, the book of Revelation is very confusing. I think the key to the book of Revelation is the last chapter, where John makes it clear that the point of this is for people to get to work with the gospel. And he sort of, at the end of it, sort of says, like, I didn't give you this so that you'll know when the season of the time is. Like, I gave you this so you'd remember how serious things are going to be and get to work. And that's sort of the key to understanding the whole thing. I read the book and I just go, wow, I need to get to work. Because it's obviously not laid out in a format for us to understand everything. It's more laid out to paint a picture to, I think, to fuel the urgency of our hearts. And also, said in the end times, things aren't completely foreign. When we're seeing them, it's going to be lining up with things we've read in the book. But, people, I would ask, like, are you pre-trib or post-trib rapture or mid-trib? And I honestly, I haven't studied any of them enough to really have an opinion, but I just know that Jesus is coming for me. And we can get caught up in the details, and we can spend a lot, when I went to seminary, spent a lot of time arguing over the details. It's really easy to spend a lot of time talking about the Lord and not talking to Him. It's easy to spend a lot of time talking about Him and not spending time with Him. And so I would say it's not that the conversations about eschatology are completely without merit. There is some value in them, but I find that far too often we spend way too much more time talking about that instead of the things that Jesus made really clear. And I'm not sure who says it, but somebody a lot more brilliant than me says, I don't want to major on things Jesus minored on. Jesus made a lot of things really clear that we're supposed to be focused on. So I don't want to spend a lot of my time focusing on how the timeline of the end times is going to work out. I want to spend time making sure that people go with me.
Absolutely. Revelations in Scripture, as well as Daniel and some other places that would be all kind of referring to the same thing. And so I believe it should be read, it should be looked at, it should be understanding should be sought in those areas. However, if you finish reading Revelation and your reaction is, or if you start reading Revelation for this purpose of almost like a national treasure thing, and you got to figure out the code and follow all these clues to find the date, what's his name last year thought he did, and it's completely missing the point. It's like reading Ecclesiastes and focusing on what the whole purpose of that book is at the end when he says, so I say all this to say, love and follow God. If you read Revelation and come away with, well, I need to start figuring out the puzzle pieces and we don't even have time to figure out the puzzle pieces. Literally people are dying, and the gospel is what they need, not the last day if you think you could figure it out. Those things that, like I said, I think they're valuable for helping us understand the urgency. But you're missing the point if it doesn't conjure up an urgency in you and it conjures up your code solving and problem solving tendencies. I think you're missing it.
And for me, when people talk about Revelation, when I read the book of Revelation, I get encouraged at how majestic our God is and how incredibly awesome He is. But for me, getting into the study of eschatology that we've sort of manufactured over time of trying to figure it all out, it kind of reminds me of a lot of times we'll with older people, we'll tell them we're going somewhere, and they'll start giving us directions to get there, and really we're just going to plug it in the GPS. And so everything they're saying to me is like, the only piece of information I needed to know is that I charged my phone and I had my car charger with me. Or like I remember when I went in to get to the doctor and had my appendix removed, the first thing they told me was they were going to knock me out, take my appendix out, and then I would get better. And then they started explaining to me everything they're going to do during my procedure. And I'm just honest, like, I really don't care. Like, you're going to knock me out. You took a degree in this. And like, when I read the book of Revelations and people major on like the order of it, how's it all going to happen, I'm like, he doesn't seem to make that a priority. The Bible doesn't seem to make that a priority for us. So I don't think it's a useless study, but I don't think it's as valuable as some other things. Mm-hmm. And not to say the book itself. The book's very valuable, but I mean for that purpose. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to add to that. But I think, this isn't my thought on it. This is my plea on it. Please read that book and be encouraged at the urgency of the situation. And study it and learn what God has for you in it. But the response should always be that my time is. We're getting closer. I do think I do think that it's going to come to an end at some point. And the other side of that, and I have conversations like about this and a lot. And
you can end
sorry, we got some friends coming, but my say a natural disaster happens or something, and we're like, oh, that must mean 9 times, or something really bad happens, and we think of it as a sign. If our response to a disaster is like, let's get on our high horse about what Revelation says on it, instead of, man, more people died, we are running out of time, let's get on it and let's go. There's things happening, let's go help those people and their families, and I think that's our response. I think that's what the purpose is, and I think Jesus kind of hints at that when he's talking to the people about wanting signs and wanting signs, and we're not looking at the real issue at hand. Jesus is right in front of us. Time is running out. There are real people right in front of us, and so that's my encouragement. I hope that does encourage, and do hope you see it as a plea. And love you guys. Grace and peace. Thanks for the question.